Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Life Leader Show, where we help people make more, work less, and live better. I am joined by my Polish co-host, Peter Kolat. What's up, bro?
Did you just say Peter Kolat?
That's your real name, man. I know you like. I know you like Polish Peter, but
everybody will know.
And I didn't even mention my name. So you have the spotlight here. Yeah.
Well, I guess you don't need to mention your name. I mean, who wants to know that anyway?
No one cares.
Listen. Awesome episode coming up for you guys.
Yes,
right now, we're going to be talking about systems, which everybody loves talking about systems, right?
This is a killer episode.
Yeah. But, in business, when you're an entrepreneur, it's one of the most important things that you need to implement in your business in order to not only survive, but to thrive in your business. So
yeah, man.
I love how the, guest here broke it down into 4 stages. And if you start listening from that perspective and say, well, what are the stages to help me get to the thrive stage, to the top stage, which is the really cool and exciting one.
We'll talk about it.
You're going to get some really good gold nuggets from here.
This is an awesome episode. If you are a business owner at any level, you're going to learn a huge nugget here that'll take you to that next level. Let's jump in right now with our interview with Joe Newton. Joe, what's up, man? Welcome to the Life Leader Show.
Hey, Jason, it's good to be here, man. How are you?
Good to see you again. So Peter, I met Joe through Steve Cook, was introduced to him. Steve was like, man, you got to meet this guy, Joe. He's super awesome. He's doing some amazing things. Jumped on a call with him and we just had a hoot. We talked about a lot of cool stuff and I'm super excited that you're on the show, man. So you have a really cool history. But I think that, given the appropriate time, we'd have more time to dive into that. But what I really enjoyed most through our discussions and what you're doing now is helping small business owners. And help me here if I misstate this, but you're helping business owners basically systemize their business. You're helping them create more time. You're helping them kind of prioritize, making sure that life is in there. And that's kind of the same thing we do. And that their business doesn't just consume everything. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I kind of like to put it that I'm helping free business owners from the day-to-day operations so that they can focus on what they do best. And whether that's spend more time with their family and be an amazing dad and husband, or that's be the key salesperson and hire an operations guy to run the day-to-day, whatever that is, I help them build systems so that they can focus on what they do best.
So who is your target audience for this? Is it any small business owner or is it a niche or industry?
Yeah. So the people who I can help best with, I utilize the Systemology framework, and it's kind of designed for the small business that has at least 3 to 5 employees, all the way up to around 50 to 60 employees. Gotcha. are sort of the key demographic that we can help the most with the framework.
Gotcha, Joe. And after we spoke, look at this, man. I got a copy of the book, and it's my in the hopper book to read now once I finish the current one. So tell us, I didn't dive into this yet. Tell us, what is Systemology? What do you do? Give us some some meat to help business owners here and explain your concept and your strategy.
Yeah. And I love the practicals. And so I'll give you a little bit of background just before. I learned about systems and processes through a boot camp that I took with a guy named Joshua Smith. And I went on a journey to be like, okay, I see him consistently creating profitable businesses with a consistent outcome. I want to do that for myself. So I started reading the E-Myth and Scale Up and all these different books and Traction. And they would say, you need to systematize your business, but they didn't really tell me how to do that. And Systemology, what it is, it's a system to systematize your business. So it kind of takes off from the E-Myth and says, this is how you can actually do it in a simple way. And I kind of like to start off by using what I call the 4 stages of business systemization to help business owners get an idea of where they are in their business and where they're going when it comes to systemization. So if you want, I can kind of walk through those stages and we can talk through those.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So if you think of a pyramid, so the bottom to your pyramid, the base is the stage that most of us go through at one point or another when we first started business, and that's survival. So in the survival stage, things are up and down. There's not a whole lot of consistency. Your team's making it up. Firefighting is a key hallmark of that time, because you're figuring out what works and what doesn't, right? You're just starting off and you're doing your proof of concept. So at that time, it's seen that the biggest bottleneck within the business when it comes to system actually becomes the business owner themselves, because at the survival stage, everything is owner centric. Every big decision, every key relationship, everything has to go through the business owner. So that's stage one is survival. And the next stage after survival. So once you've realized, okay, this is actually going to work, this could be a real business, is what I call the stationary phase. And usually this is when you figured out your leads problem. You've gotten a couple of key client relationships that are giving you some cash flow. So you're starting to level off. You don't have that start and stop like you're learning to drive a stick shift anymore. And when it comes to systems, during this time, what we see is most systems, if you have them, are stored within your key individual's head. So you might have an amazing sales guy that has a process that he goes through, but it is 100% in his head, or it's probably on a bunch of sticky notes on his desk. So you might have login information on a sticky note on his monitor. You might have client information on a sticky note on his desk. So it's all very individual person dependent at that time. Oh, right. That was
my sticky note right here.
For those, he was holding up a red sticky note. I almost was like, "Oh, is that a red card? Is he telling me stop?"
He needs to put one on his forehead. That's what.
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, "Is that a signal? Oh my god!" So yeah, the stationary time, a lot of sticky notes. That's when the stationary companies, they make their money. And when it comes to culture and buy-in, you have some people who are in, some people who are out during this time. And here's where we can start talking about the practical. So if you're listening and you're saying, okay, yeah, that kind of sounds like where I'm at. I got a bunch of sticky notes on my desk. I have a few key employees, but what they do, the system or the process is 100% in their head. If they got hit by a bus, I'd lose the whole department tomorrow. And that's totally fine. In the stationary stage, though, the biggest thing you can start doing is identifying what those processes are in your business and extracting them from those employees. And when I say extract, you don't have to pull out a crane or go through a complicated process. It might be something as simple as saying, hey, when you onboard a client, next time you do it, will you just record your screen and talk out loud, pretend like you're training or talking to a new person who's going to be doing this task. And they simply record that. And now I have an example and a walkthrough, and I can easily turn that into a piece of documentation. So extraction would be the one thing you can start doing during that phase to get you to that next stage.
Got it. Can I interrupt real quick here?
Of course.
In the survival stage, in the stage one, so what I'm hearing is and tell me if this is correct, but I'm hearing that like there's not a lot of thought that's being given to systemization yet. You're kind of just figuring out the business itself. But when you get to the stabilization phase, the stable phase, now we're kind of starting to think a little bit more, focus a little more, capture what has proven itself to work to get us to that stage. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, when it comes to culture, usually in the survival stage, most people hate processes because they think to themselves, that's one more thing I have to think about that's going to stop me from getting done the things that I need to get done today.
So I have a question on that, because a lot of businesses, when they're starting up, they're in the survival. Like this is the common denominator for a lot of them, right? There's all kinds of fire burning going on and you're putting them out. And now you're telling me I got to put systems in place and things like that. So what do you think is there a most common way that people get out of that stage? Is like that one system that you focus on, or like what gets them out of that stage to the second stage, right? What allows you to break through to that? How do you get them out of there?
So the answer to that is that the sad part is that half the businesses don't make it out of the survival phase. They either figure out that that business model didn't work like they thought they would, or a myriad of other things happen and they don't make it past that first, second, third year. Now, the other half, what we usually see is the way that they're able to transition from that survival to the stationary phase is that they end up hiring key employees at this point. A lot of times they're going to start employing a accountant or a bookkeeper, or maybe they hire an admin to start taking the phone calls, doing some of that back end thing, or they bring on a salesperson to help with that. So usually we see key hires are what take us from that survival to the stationary, that they start to build out a team that gives them the bandwidth to start even thinking about working on the business, not just in the business.
And so, Joe, what is the right time for someone to? Because like I always hear this chicken or the egg argument, like, hey, we need people to hire so that we can get this stuff done, but hey, we don't have the money yet to hire these people, and so we're kind of like we're not sure what to do. What is your recommendation on that?
Yeah, and I've sort of got a whole step for myself when it comes to hiring. So when you're first starting a business, like right now, we're talking about people in the survival stage, right? When you're first starting off, the most valuable thing you have is your time. So I usually tell new entrepreneurs, when you are just trying to get your time back, the best ROI is usually to hire someone to do small personal tasks. Getting someone to mow your lawn, getting someone to clean your house, getting someone to run errands for you. These days we have Uber Eats, we have Favor, we have all of these services now that have become commoditized, that when you go down and calculate your per hour value, that's the best place to start getting that time at the beginning. So those are the people I'm hiring first. That's
not even in the business. Then you're just talking about let's clean off some of the personal things so that you could focus more on the business.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's where I start is if I can hire out those personal tasks, that gives me, even if it's 5, 6, 8 hours a month, that's a whole day now that I have to work on the business instead of working in the business. After that, I'm looking at those commoditized, skill sets that are now out there. Many times you'll see you have something like Fiverr or Upwork that you can go to if it's something small, like creating a simple website, creating a presentation, creating a new ad. So if you can find those type of venues, that's where I go to next, is to get those little things that I'm not an expert in, but have become commoditized. And I would say the next level of that would be hiring something like a bookkeeper or accountant. Again, it's something that you could totally do yourself. But I know for myself, if I was to take the time and to reconcile my books, file my quarterly taxes, prep my annual taxes, it would take me 3 times longer than my bookkeeper and my accountant. So if I just hire them for less than $300 to $500 a month when I'm starting off, then I just gained a ton of time that, again, now I can start to focus more and more on the business. And after that, that's when I'm going to hire the 1099 employee that I'm bringing in, whether it's a VA or an assistant or someone else who can take off some of those repetitive tasks within my business, but are more business some of those tasks that are more of my business pertinent. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally. And so is this happening in the stable stage or at the end of the survival stage? Is this getting you from survival to stable, or is this once you are stable, you start making these hires?
I would say most of these hires, especially the early ones, those are happening during survival.
Okay.
Get someone to do your lawn, your laundry, and your website during survival. Get that off your plate as soon as possible.
Got it. Okay. So, all right. So we're in the second stage. We've started to and I love what you said here. Like, look at the people who are doing the thing well and see what they're doing. It's just not some randomly armchair expert created SOP or something. You're documenting, following, and observing the people that are making it happen and asking them to kind of just basically track it. It's not even any extra work yet. They're just kind of tracking it really and walking through it. So what happens after that?
Exactly. And I do want to point out one thing during this time, because it's one of the biggest myths that I see, is the business owner often believes that they need to be the one to create or document their systems. They're thinking, hey, I'm the one who started this. I've got the most insight. But if they can find those key people and just document what they're currently doing and get everyone else to that consistent level, that's going to be a huge win for them. And most likely, most business owners are that gunslinger visionary, right? Details are not their forte. So if they can even find an admin or someone else who's already in the business, who's a little more detail oriented, and even more important, has some bandwidth, they're going to be much better at extracting and creating that documentation than the business owner is themselves. So I just wanted to point that out because it's something real big that's a sticking point for a lot of business owners at this time.
Yeah, dude, that's a great point, because I remember we have employees in Life and Air, and they've essentially gone and created these SOPs. And I had to kind of let go and just say, okay, I'm okay. Because I think a business owner typically wants to have their hand in a lot of different things and feel like they know what's going on in all these different areas, which is completely impossible with any degree of scale. Like, I'm sure Elon Musk does not know what's going on, like, you know what I mean, in the break room at one of his. I think just letting go, like, you have to just kind of not only are you empowering this person, they probably are closer to the problem than you are, even if you're the business owner, but you got to let go of that, like have the confidence in your people.
Well, I think it's a little bit more deeper than this. I think in a lot of aspects is like the idea of nobody can do it as well as I do, right?
Well, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So how you have those kinds of conversations, what's your take on what he just talked about, letting it go? Nobody can do it as well as I do, right? Or I'm saving money by doing this thing myself, that kind of stuff. How you deal with that?
These are great questions, and they're such important conversations for us to have as entrepreneurs and business owners. The biggest thing here is the shift in mindset, because all of the things that we just mentioned were 100% true in the survival stage. When you're first starting off, it is really important that you have a pulse on everything that's going on and that you're getting feedback consistently right away. But as you start to have employees and then as you start to hand off certain tasks, it does become important that you make that mental shift to say, okay, how can I create something that is consistent and then measurable so that I can be confident that even if I'm no longer involved in this on the day-to-day, I still have a measurement that this is being done. And that can come into creating a dashboard for your business, whether that's at a high level with your KPIs in there and your lead and lag measures, or just something as simple like, hey, for each process, what is the one number that I'm going to know whether we're winning or losing?
Dude, that is huge. So what I just heard is by using metrics selectively based on the processes you want to monitor, you can eliminate fear with a tangible measure. Like, so it's not just a matter of like, hey, you just need to be comfortable and trust your people. It's like, hey, I need to do that, but I also can tell whether it's going good or bad based on these measures, these KPIs, or whatever indicator we use. So you have some real-time feedback, and it's not just like sending it off into oblivion and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And the cool thing about this is I'm ADD, dyslexic. I don't do well with super complex things. My wife's a programmer, married her for that. Like, I hand off the complex math to her. So for me, I love the example that they give. I think it's in Traction, where they talk about everyone having a number, and the business owner had the person who answered the phone, and their number was 2. 2 rings good, 3 rings bad. So it was just a simple number. It wasn't like a super complex algorithm. It was like, okay, how do I know if this system or this person is winning in this specific instance?
That's awesome, man. All right, keep us going, man. This is great.
Yeah. So we're in stationary. We've began to extract those processes. And the next phase we enter into is what I like to call the scalable phase. And this is what all of the books tell us where we want to get, right? Yeah. Scale now, scaling up. Everybody wants you to get a scalable business. And it is good. So once we're out of stationary, we're in scale. So we're able to break through some of those glass ceilings that we've been running up against. When it comes to systems, we now have partially documented our business. So maybe our technicians and our training is really well documented, but our sales staff and our onboarding isn't as much. And that's totally fine during this phase. But we've started to get that consistency with our business. And when it comes to the documentation, we also see that it's a little bit clunky. So one of the key indicators that we're in this phase is if I go on your computer and say, hey, where are your systems? Maybe you open up Dropbox or G Drive or OneDrive, whatever it is, and you have a folder that says documentation. And then we go into a folder that says operations. And then we go into a folder that says onboarding. Then we go into it. There's a lot of different levels and folders and documents. And maybe this other one is over here. It's actually in a file drawer. There's a physical file. And that's where all of our documentation for HR is. So we have documentation, but it's very clunky in its execution. And when it comes to buy-in and culture, there's constant reminding. We're constantly having to remind people, hey, do it this way. Hey, do it this way. Hey, do it this way. Hey, use this template. So we're beginning to see some traction, but we have a lot of friction in the solutions. So
got it. So I just have a question, man. So
yeah,
I feel extremely called out right now with the folders of folders of folders.
Where's the red sticky?
Yeah, I am feeling like extreme. My room just got like 4 degrees warmer. And so
hey, there's no condemnation in Christ.
No judgment.
Admitting you have a problem is the first step to recovery.
Right. Hi, I'm Jason. Hi, Jason. All right. So listen, so I have 2 questions here as we're getting into this, and if you're going to cover this later, let me know and we can deter. Two questions are, one, like I've read the traction book and it says like, hey, keep it super simple. No details, just like literally like kind of bullet point top line items. And I've heard other people say, no, there's way too much room for interpretation. You want it spelled out, take a screenshot, have the arrow pointing to the button they click and do super detailed. That's the first question. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I'm going to respond with, it depends.
Okay.
I will say that is another myth that I see a lot of times, is that certain companies think that they need to document and systematize like McDonald's. We need to have a machine to where the size of the patty is documented, the exact temperature of the refrigerator and the ice cream maker. There's super systematized. But we need to recognize that McDonald's has been around for 50, 100 years at this point. They've had a ton of time, decades and decades, to systematize, refine, and figure out what works for them. Most of the people we're talking to that are probably listening to us are not a McDonald's organization. And if they are, there are probably other people they need to be talking to for their systems.
Right. So so let me make sure I understand correctly here. What I heard you say is that it's not necessarily a bad thing to have that level of detail, but what also struck me is like, hey, you don't want to get hung up in that level of detail if you're not there yet. And so would you say it's a lofty aspiration that more detailed is typically better over time, as long as you're not getting hung up on it, as long as you're not like, letting it consume you? Is that okay? Or is that a bad thing?
I would say it's that 80-20 rule when you're starting off. What we usually start off is something called the critical client flow. And this is the tool that we use to identify that 8 to 15 mission critical systems in your business. When you're starting off, figure out what those key systems are that if they're documented, they're going to have the most impact on your business, and build out a strong foundation. And from there, and maybe we get to this if we start talking about how do you implement a systems culture. But one of the things I usually share with entrepreneurs is, if you have a place now, which in the scalable phase, the one overarching thing I would encourage you to do is organize, which means taking all of those systems and processes that are clunkily documented and figure out how can I take away as much friction as possible, whether that's utilizing some sort of technology that organizes your system. So in one place, they have the documentation that they can read, there's a video that they can watch, and then there are any email templates and login information. If it's in one place and it's simple, they know, okay, to figure out how I do this, I go here, there's an example, it's all in one place, we organize.
Okay.
If you can have that for your key mission critical systems, you're in a place where you're better than 90% of the people up to this point, because you've taken away the friction for your employees to where they actually want to use your systems. And think about when you go to that website and you're ready to spend money and they say, hey, okay, give us your email. Okay, now go to that email that we just sent you, click the link here. Now schedule a time to talk to us. You're like, listen, shut up and take my money. I'm ready.
Right.
It's the same thing with systems. With only a few systems, if we can take away that friction, we get so much more bang for our buck. And then we can refine those systems and figure out now which ones, as issues come up, do we start to add and that are going to be the most return on our time and resource investment.
So for people that are trying, so let's say that some people have created these and now they are in this process that you're talking about of trying to reduce friction. What are some of the tangible things you've seen work with people? And what are some do you have any top level suggestions like that off the top of your head, you would make some recommendations on?
Do you mean for specific technologies or, how to organize structure? Do
you see people like, hey, a lot of my clients use Google Drive and they have, what are some things they can do what are some things you think people should consider doing to get organized?
I think the specific technology doesn't matter as much. If you're just looking for a handful of technologies, System Hub is a great one, Process Street. If you just Google any of those names and say System Hub competition, you'll come up with a list of different technologies, but the technology is usually about 10%. It's the shiny thing. And again, we're here with another myth we hit a lot is people think if I just get the right technology, if I just get ClickUp, if I just get Asana implemented, then this is going to systematize my business. And it's usually about 10% of the answer you're looking for, because we've still got to deal with culture. You can have the most detailed, beautiful example documented with videos and templates and all of that. But if your people aren't actually using it, if they don't say to themselves, okay, this is the way we do things here, then it doesn't matter. So I know that's a long answer to.
Yeah, no, that's valuable though. Cause I think that people can get stuck on that stage.
Here's what I would encourage for a business owner who's at that stage. Find a technology, start to organize and just ask yourself the question, how can I take away friction for my employees when it comes to viewing these systems? And if you can just get those little wins, that's a big thing to focus on. The next thing, ask yourself, how have I unknowingly or knowingly trained my employees to pull me in? So if I have a well-documented system, and this gets into the systems culture, if I have a place where all of my how-to systems live, all of my processes and documentation lives, if I have an employee who comes to me, I'll share an example of a recent client. We were talking through a new product line that he had, and he said it was just sucking a ton of his time. So I asked him, I said, okay, what specifically is taking up your time with this new product? And he started talking to me about how there would be a client that would call in, and it was a pool repair, was the specific new product line. So they would need this repair. He would have his tech that would give them the quote saying, hey, this is what we recommend, replace X, Y, and Z, but there would be pushback. So his employees would always call him in and say, hey, I need you to get on the phone. We have pushback here. So he was the escalation department for this. Mm-hmm. And it happened because he believed in his head that, okay, well, I'm the one who has the best knowledge of how the pool systems work, and I'm the best customer service person. So obviously I would need to be the one to take those calls. So he had unknowingly trained his team to say, hey, when we get this call, I need to be the one who takes that. So that's where he was. But here's what I'd like the vision I'd like to cast for you if you have a systematized culture. So instead of him being the one who always takes that call, he would say, first question out of the gate when they come to him, have you checked the documentation? Is there an answer to this there? And if his employee says, yes, I looked, there's not an escalation system or process in there. He'd say, hey, totally fine. I'm going to call the person. I'm going to put it on speakerphone. I want you to take your phone and I want you to record the conversation. So he talks to the client, goes through his list of questions that he has. They're wonderful. Boom. After that, he says, okay, here's what I need you to do. I need you to email that conversation to our systems champion and CC me on there. His systems champion then takes that, creates a new process. Boom. Now we have an example, sets a time on his calendar to do a Zoom call. And then during that Zoom call, they listen to that example. And as they're listening to it, the owner now talks through exactly what they're doing. So he says, hey, at the beginning, you see here, I'm asking them these key questions to really identify what their pain point really is. And then after that, I'm bracketing to see what their budget really is. And then I'm going into call to action, whatever it is. Now, having taken less than 2 hours of his time, he has a new system to where he never gets pulled in to that specific problem again. So that's how they can utilize systems and create and train everyone to go to the systems before they go to you as the owner.
Dude, that is great. And I think that happens so much for people. And so that's a huge tip there. I can't wait for people to run with that one. So now we're in the scaling up phase, right? Or what did you call it? The
scalable. Yeah. Scalable scaling up. Okay. Great book, but yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. And so now we've matured along this business path. What's after? There's one, you said there's one more, right?
Yeah. So we're in the scalable phase, and we're our key action that we're taking is we're organizing. We're taking away as much friction as we can in our systems and processes. Finally, we get to the top of our pyramid, the holy land of systemization. And that's what I call the sellable, or what I think is even more applicable is the buyable phase. And even if you're thinking to yourself, I don't really want to sell my business, I would still encourage you to pursue getting your business to a place to where it is a buyable asset for a number of reasons. One, it gets you the option to be able to sell if you need to. Two, the same actions that you take to get your business to that stage and that phase are the exact same ones that you would take if you want to step out and just focus on one area of the business, or just have it be that ATM that you collect distribution checks from, once a month or whatever they are. And sellable, when we get to this phase, what we see when it comes to systems, all of our core systems and processes are completely documented with precision. We're running like a Swiss watch. And culture, we've moved from constantly reminding people, hey, do it this way, to now the culture says when someone in the organization is approached, they say, oh, well, this is the way we do things here. We check the documentation first. Then if there's not a system, we find the answer to that problem, and we create a system or process for it moving forward. And now the key action that you will take is simply to optimize. So set the goals that you have for your company at this stage and tweak the system to optimize it to where they're running even better to achieve those goals.
Dude, man, that's awesome. Tell us about what exactly I see. I mean, there's so many different roles in business. When do you actually systemize something, and when is it worth systemizing something versus this is truly is like a one-off, or it doesn't happen that frequently? Is there any kind of like measure or test you use for that?
Usually I say if it happens consistently, and that can be once a day, all the way up to if it's once a quarter, okay, I would systemize that. If it's something that's going to consistently happen in your business, create a system, even if it's just a high level. So as opposed to that technical low level, click here, do this. If it's a high level overview system, have something in place that's the backbone from it. So again, there's a standard for your employees to know if they're winning and if they're not, because I don't mean this analogy directly, but I have a toddler, and what I've learned with kids, and I find this with adults and employees as well, is they do really well with structure and knowing whether they're winning or not. And so having even if it's just a basic system that you can now test and that gives them that confidence that, okay, this is how things are doing and they don't need to come to you for the answer, would be what you would need to do. So long answer, short question would be, if you're doing it more than once, I would say eventually you'd probably want to create a system for it.
Okay. And this may or may not be within the scope of what you want to discuss, and we can just pass if you don't think it is. When you are a starting business, and as you go through the stage of being buyable or sellable, how you say it, it goes from being the Wild West to everybody's kind of just like got the guns in their hips and they're just blazing a trail to really very structured, very predictable, very, systemized. How do you get people to that love that? And do you like, what do you do with the people that like really are reluctant to come on board with, hey, I kind of like doing things my way. I don't want to systemize. I don't like the changes that are happening right now. Like, is that something you face a lot, or are you seeing people deal with?
Oh, of course. Yes. And it's really important to face that head on. And the answer to that is, one, going through some basic steps to go from, we're not just creating documentation for a business, but systems are now a value of our business. And they're a core virtue that we are seeking to integrate in our business. So step number one with that is the leadership team, whether that's just the founder, owner, or if you're to the point now to where you have a core team that is high-level managers, whatever it is for you, whoever is the leadership of your organization, making the intentional commitment to saying, we are going to commit to creating a systems culture. So that's step number one. Step number two is leading by example. So as the leaders, you've got to stick to the systems that you put in place for yourself. I'll give you an example. The biggest place that we see this kind of fall through, you have that visionary leader who created the company. He's the gunslinger. Ideas are abundant for him, right? He has a million ideas for possibilities. So instead of going through the set process of saying, okay, I have an idea, I'm going to put that down on paper. Then at our quarterly meeting, I'm going to present that to the leadership team and we're going to decide if that's a rock and then implement it into the business. He goes, boom, amazing idea. Got to act now. Circumvents the integrator, goes straight to the marketing department, says, hey, I need you to create me a lead page. I need you to create me a sales funnel. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, no, this is important. Stop what you're doing. Focus on this. So he's got to commit and lead by example. He's got to stick to his systems is step number two for that. Step number three is creating a systems champion. So someone within the organization who is trained on creating, documenting, and updating systems so that there can now be a rhythm to whether that's quarterly, annually, whatever it is, systems are getting updated and they're consistently being created as they're needed in a simple and easy process. Because if it becomes hard, if your employees are like, oh, this is one more thing I have to do, and I've always got to go up here and update this system, they're not going to do it because you're just distracting them instead of this being a tool and a value add for them. So having someone on staff who's able to help them and make that easy is going to be another thing that will make buy-in even more. But after that, I just wanted to add one more thing because I think it's really important. You're going to have hard conversations and decide there are certain people who they're just not going to buy in. And depending on who you've hired, they might even push back or try to sabotage it. And you need to make the decision as a business owner. Do we need to part with that person and buy someone who is bought into our vision and our culture?
Dude, this is awesome. I mean, I'm so, I could talk to you for hours about this, man. Stuff. I just love this. We're out of time, but I want people to know where they can learn more about you, your services, what you provide. Where would they go?
Yeah, if they just go to eijsystems.com, and I'll even put a /life in air, then I'll have a place there. You can set up a quick 20-minute conversation. More than happy to answer any questions you have or help in any way that I can.
Joe, man, this has been an incredible episode. Thanks so much for being on the show, man.
It was awesome. Appreciate it, Jason.
Dude, that was an awesome episode, man. He's such a cool guy, number one. But number two, I mean, I just love this topic that he was sharing with us. And some of one of my favorite takeaways was he talked about the different stages of business, which I can totally relate to, by the way. And how at each stage you have a different challenge and a different goal for your system development process.
As a listener, hopefully you guys were listening to see, okay, which stage am I in right now?
Yeah.
Am I in between stages? Am I in the survival stage? Am I in the scalable stage, right? And when you start looking from that perspective and what he was talking about, you can start looking and start implementing, where do I need to focus on in order to get my business running in that stage? And then so I can move to the next stage, right? One cool thing that I got take away from this particular episode is at the beginning, you mentioned, because the type of businesses that he works with, he mentioned that sometimes it's not about systematizing the business at the beginning when they're putting out the fires. It's about systematizing something outside of your business.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
That was a very cool thing because that allows you to free up some time that you can do in a business. And I think that happens because some people don't at that particular stage, like, well, I don't have the money to be able to go and spend all the stuff on business, right? So looking to free up some time so you can start working on that will help you get those wheels moving, to get to hire somebody, right? Get some more profit and some more revenue in your business so you can start hiring somebody. And
well, that's the thing too. Yeah. I think the quality of your hires kind of escalates the further along the profitability spectrum you get. So like starting off, I think, hire things that are inexpensive that maybe you were doing on your plate and it has a lower hourly rate. Cause that way you can free up your time for more productive things, higher ROI activities. And then as you get more profit in your business, you can start to get more talented people to do certain things that are a higher wage or higher activity. Yeah, man, that was awesome. I really like the flow of talk. He talked about, first of all, just documenting. Number one, it's not even like sitting down and creating a new thing, but like, hey, next time you do it, just record a video or record the audio. Like you don't even have to do anything extra other than actually just record it. Cause that's no extra work. Like, so we all can do that. And my guess is that like, even if you're a salesperson, you're going to have a bunch of different sales and you have all these different conversations, but guess what? You record a dozen of these things, you're be able to pull out some serious nuggets that you're a systems champion can now put into a documentable format for your process. Loved it, man. I thought it was a super awesome episode.
Yeah. Another takeaway that I had from that episode is business owners, right? Especially maybe it's a partners, like there's got a visionary integrator or any business owner. I think the owner itself needs to have a process in for himself.
Yeah. You know,
and I think that was the cool thing, like whether you're an integrator, especially if you're a visionary, right? You have all these ideas. I think you need to implement a system for yourself. And when you have that idea that's going to come up, you have to go through this process before you start implementing that idea. Because for a visionary, I think you tend to go 20,000 different ideas.
Well, because you're kind of, you're the sheriff in town of the Wild West and you just do what you want to do. Like, you gotta set the example. The last thing I think I really, really enjoyed was he wrapped it up talking about allowing your business to become buyable. And so that means what I take is, number one, you've actually succeeded at this point of buying something that somebody else wants, which gives you so much freedom in terms of now maybe you're not required on the front lines anymore and you can sit back and work on the business or the things you want to do in the business. Or like you said, you just sit back and get those distribution checks as an owner. There's just so many options that become available to you as you kind of go down this path. So it's well worth it. I know some people really enjoy the thrill of the kill and they're out there in the field and they want to be the one in the front line. That's okay. But you still got to have a business that can run without you, ideally, so that if something ever happens, you're building some security into your life, into your business, into your income. So awesome episode. Check out Joe. I would strongly suggest catching up with Joe. He's a great guy. So all right, listen. Hope you enjoyed the episode. We loved having these conversations. Peter, I feel like we get to talk to some amazing people just by being the host of the show. So I feel incredibly blessed. I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you want to be part of the Life Leader conversation, go on and download the app. It's free. Head on over to lifeleader.com to learn more. Leave us a review, leave us a rating, tell your friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, gym buddies, church friends. neighborhood dogs about us. Like we'll take all the listeners we can get because it helps us reach more people and change more lives. Until next time, check out those systems and take a step up that process documentation sequence so you can become free and be a business owner rather than a frontline operator. Yeah, Peter.
No, I said that's it.
Oh, there's a thumbs up.
That's a thumbs up. Yep.
All right. See you next week, everyone.